I figured it out.
What was it?
There's an internal setting in Windows that says, do you want me to loop the mic to the output in real time or not? And normally it causes all kinds of weird feedback. So, but I can see it coming in to the mixing board. And so I can like tweak volume over here and we'll see what happens. I did turn back off original sound in Zoom. So Zoom's gonna try and do whatever it's gonna do. And then we'll just see. Yep.
I'm not a lone wolf, and I never was. Anything I achieve it because I am standing on the shoulders of an infinite many, seen and unseen. I'm not a lone wolf, and I never was. Anything I achieve it because I am riding on a tidal wave of universal longing.
I'm dropping the I, I'm claiming the we, I'm feeling the everything inside of me. I'm dropping the mine, I'm claiming the ours, 'cause the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm dropping the I, I'm claiming the we, I'm feeling the everything inside of me. I'm dropping the mine, I'm claiming the ours, 'cause I recognize how connected we are.
Every tear that was ever shed, and every prayer that was ever said, and every gesture on every day weaves us into the dancing. This is love's way. Oh, every tear that was ever shed, and every prayer that was ever said, and every step on every day leads us into belonging. This is love's way.
I'm not alone, I'm claiming that and I never was.
I'm feeling the everything inside of me. I'm dropping the
I am standing on the shoulders of an infinite I'm seen, I'm not alone.
I'm claiming
that
and I
was
never
ever
was
shed,
anything I
every
achieve.
prayer
I
that was
achieve
ever
it because
said,
I am
and every
riding
step
on a
every
title.
day leads us into believe
So
this is love's way. Oh, oh.
Good morning. Very interesting audio challenges. All right. We thought we had one solution and now we've created a second problem. Lovely. Perfect. Give me half a second here. Great. Okay, back to normal. So as you can tell, at the Greater Nashville Unitarian Universalist, we are attempting to do some very interesting things with hybrid service, and sometimes it doesn't work as well as we hoped. So I'm going to project so that we don't get an echo in the room here, and we'll continue working on this problem later. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Greater Nashville Unitarian Universalist congregation. Welcome to today's service on a lovely wintry February 2022 morning. Today's service explores the theme of widening the circle. And we'll explore what widening the circle looks like for various ages. And there are some kids with us remotely, and sometimes there are kids here too. And if you're feeling particularly childish, you're welcome to engage in the coloring books and poster production later. Our chalice lighting this morning comes from the neo-feminist, neo-pagan thinker Starhawk. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us, and eyes will light up as we enter, and voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free. Central to Unitarian Universalist theology is the premise of a covenant. In this context, covenant means a sacred promise that we aspire to when we are together. And the covenant of this congregation is here. And if you are moved and would like to recite it with me, you are invited. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit
as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world.
I'm Araceli Skarmay, and this is for Estefany, 3rd grade, who made me a card. Elephant on an orange line underneath a yellow circle, meaning sun. 6 green vertical lines with color all from the top, meaning flowers. The first time I peel back the 5 squares of Scotch tape, unfold the crooked crease fold of art class paper, I am in my living room. It is June. Inside of the card, there is one long word, and then Estefany's name. Los Furivori, Estefany. Los Furivori? Los Furivori, the scientific Latinate way of saying hibiscus. Los Furivori, a direction as in, are you going north, south, east, west, Los Furivori? I try over and over to read the word out loud. Los Furivori, Lo is Furivori, Los Furivori, Los Furivori. What is this word? I imagine using it in sentences like, man, I have to go back to the house, I forgot my Los Furivori. Or, there's nothing better than rain, hot rain, open windows with music, and a tall glass of Los Furivori. Or, how are we getting to Pittsburgh? Should we drive or take the Los Furivori? I have lived 4 minutes with this word, not knowing what it means. It is the end of the year. I consider writing my student, Estefany, a letter that goes, to the brilliant Estefany. Hola, querida. I hope that you are well. I've just opened the card that you made me, and it is beautiful. I really love the way you filled the sky with birds. I believe that you are chula, chulita, and superfly. Yes, the card is beautiful. I only have one question for you. What does the word Los Furivori mean? I try the word again. Los Furivori, Los Furivori, Los Furivori. I try the word in Spanish. Los Furivori, Los Furivori, Los Furivori. And then slowly, Lo is for everybody. Lo is for everybody. Love is for everybody. Love is for everybody. Love, love, love everybody. Love everybody. Love, love. Is love everybody? Everybody is love. Love, love for everybody. For love is everybody. Love is for everybody. Love, love, love for body. Love body. Body is love. Love is body. Everybody is love. Is every love? For every love is love. For love, everybody love, love. Love, love for everybody. Love is for everybody.
Many Unitarian Universalists this month are reflecting on the theme of widening the circle. Our faith is an expansive one. Historically, the Unitarian Universalists disagreed with those who believed that Jesus was the only way to get to heaven. Instead, we asserted that all people are inherently good and that God will ensure that humanity is welcomed into God's love. There is no question of salvation because salvation is not a relevant question. That is why we have the universalism in our name. The Unitarian part has to do with rejecting ideas that are overly complicated. We're kind of the Occam's razor of religions, right? So the Universalists believe in universal salvation, or as we more commonly think of it, universal goodness. The call of universalism is to continually expand our love to wider and wider circles until all of humanity and the natural world itself is embraced. So what's one way that our faith guides us into a widening circle? It tells us to grow love beyond our boundaries. So today we're going to explore ways that our congregation could grow love beyond its boundaries. Let's get started.
Let me tell you about the hungry coat. Mullah Nasruddin was a wise, scholarly theologian. He was also a hard-working, industrious farmer. And one day, during the Feast of Ramadan, he was working hard on his farm. As the sun was beginning to set, his stomach was beginning to grumble, and his mind was already somewhat in the future, because one of the wealthiest members of his community had invited everyone to come and gather for a feast to break the fast on this evening. Mullah Nasruddin could already almost taste the figs, the chicken, the beef, the lentils, all of the good and delicious things that would be spread on that table for everyone to share and enjoy. The only problem was that he had worked so long and so hard that it was almost time to gather for the feast already. If he went home to wash himself and change his clothes, he'd be late. So he decided he would go directly from working in the fields to the feast. When he arrived at the door, a servant answered and immediately noticed his dirty, tattered, worn work clothes. They also recognized his face and they let him in, but with some reluctance and certainly without a word of welcome. Mullah Nasruddin arrived at the feast, at the table where all the other members of the community were gathered, and they likewise looked him over scornfully, questioning. None of them issued a welcome, a hello. No one moved aside to make space for him at the table. They noticed his clothes, and they continued their conversations. So he grabbed a plate and he reached between people to choose the food that he wanted and the things that he had been so excited about eating. There were the figs and the chicken and the beef and the lentils that he had been counting on all day. But somehow, once he had his food, his appetite was gone. But being a wise and scholarly man, he put his plate down in a corner and went home. He washed himself. He dressed, and he put on his finest coat, a coat with many pockets, many colors made of silk, one that the members of the community had commented on before. And indeed, when he returned, the servant opened the door and looked favorably upon his coat and said, "My, Mullah Nasruddin, you're looking fine this evening. We're glad that you could join us. Please come in." When Mullah Nasruddin came to the table in his clean and fancy dress, well, a few people moved aside and invited him to sit next to them and asked how his day had been and offered him some of the delicious foods that were spread on the table. Well, this time, the mullah saw the figs and put one into his pocket and said, "Eat, coat, eat, enjoy." And he reached out for some nuts And he put those into another pocket and said, "Eat, coat, eat." He wasn't so sure about putting chicken or beef in his coat, and maybe lentils either, but there were some dates, and he put those into his coat's pocket and said, "Eat, coat, enjoy the meal." Finally, the host of the feast had watched enough and silenced all the conversation and addressed the mullah directly. "Mullah Nasruddin, lovely that you could be with us this evening. Why are you putting food into your coat pockets?" And the mullah replied, "Yes, thank you so much for the kind and generous invitation. I am merely feeding my coat because I realized that when I came before in my dirty work clothes, that I was not really welcome at this table. But when I returned in my fine clothing, in my fancy coat, that I was suddenly seen. And that helped me understand that it is not I who am welcome at this feast, but my coat." This story challenges us. When we state an intention to open our communities, our homes, our hearts, our lives, to widen our circles, that we need to search ourselves and be aware of the places where we might be keeping others out, that we get to choose to welcome in those who others might turn away, and in fact, to be radical in our acceptance. This story inspired this song. Who is my neighbor and who is my friend? Who do I welcome to step right on in? Who do I comfort with all of my love? May it be said of me that the answer is everyone. Let 'em in, let 'em in. The hungry and the ragged who've been tossed off by the wind. Let 'em in, let 'em in. Watch and see what goodness can begin. When am I open? When am I kind? When am I willing to share what's on my mind? When do I listen, even if I don't agree? May you find it's every time, that's who I strive to be. Let 'em in, let 'em in. Different and peculiar might become a trusted friend. Let 'em in, let 'em in. And watch and see what newness can begin. Let 'em in, let 'em in. Open up your heart and let 'em in.
Unitarian Universalists believe that one of the sources of inspiration are the prophetic words that we sometimes speak to each other. We are incredibly lucky for Leah Morris and her story songs that she creates in real time in response to the theological thinkings within the congregation. Another tradition we have at this particular congregation in terms of widening our circle and reminding ourselves that we are connected to a larger movement of progressive thinking in the state is to share the plate collection that we take each Sunday, half with an outside organization and half with our own internal programming. February's Share the Plate partner is the Southern Environmental Law Center. The SELC's mission is to protect the basic right to clean air, clean water, and a livable climate, and to preserve the region's natural resources and biodiversity, to provide a healthy environment for all, with an understanding that environmental justice and economic justice and racial justice overlap and reinforce each other, so that progress in one is progress in the other. In response to a civil rights complaint that the SELC filed on behalf of the branch of the North Carolina State Conference of the NAACP and the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency agreed to investigate the discriminatory impact of pollution and adverse health risks, including premature death, that industrial hog production imposed on Black and Latino communities in North Carolina. Toxic environmental conditions disproportionately harm communities of color, and the SELC takes legal action to redress these injustices. Please give generously to the SELC that effectively takes on environmental social justice issues relevant to our UU mission and our UU principles.
Whether you love this part of our incredible region or this, whether you live here or here, whether these are your neighbors or these, your most powerful environmental defender is rooted right here in the South. We are the Southern Environmental Law Center, protecting the communities and places that we call home and striving to ensure a healthy environment for all of us. At SELC, we believe everyone has the right to drink clean water, breathe clean air, and enjoy the natural beauty and places that make this region so special. For more than 35 years, we've been the muscle and the heart behind landmark environmental victories, securing clean air and water protections for communities across our region, defeating repeated attempts to bring offshore drilling to our coasts, and forcing the removal of more than 250 million tons of toxic coal ash. At SELC, we not only take on the toughest environmental challenges, we win. And we're not done yet. With our nonprofit and nonpartisan legal advocacy work, we'll continue to hold polluters accountable, stand alongside our communities, and strengthen the environmental laws and policies that protect all of us. We are the Southern Environmental Law Center, and we're solving our country's most complex environmental challenges, starting right here in the South.
All right, we're about to segue from a lot of screen time into a more interactive up and down standing part of the service. But to bridge those two, we'll have a little meditation. When the meditation's over, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to play with a xylophone, specifically this one. So I'm not asking for the volunteer yet. I'm just letting you know that soon I will ask for a volunteer. So if that might be fun for you, think about that. And we'll figure that out. Okay, before we do that, let's have a brief meditation. Okay. We'll be using the song From You I Receive by Joseph and Rabbi Nathan Siegel, and sung by the Reverend Kristen Grassel-Schmidt from the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Okay. There's hand gestures that go with this, so we'll practice these first. Okay. Okay. So the lyrics I'll recite, and then I'll gesture, and we'll just kind of practice together, and then we'll do it with the actual singing. Right? So the first lyric is, "From you I receive." Okay? So stretch your hands out, and then cup them back to your heart. Right? So from you I receive. Okay? Then if you turn somewhere else, to you I give. And then together we share, and by this we live. Okay? So do that one more time through, and then we'll start the song. Okay. So from you I receive, okay? And to you I give, and together we share, and by this we live. Okay? All right, friends, at the media table, go for it.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
Okay, it's xylophone time. I'm going to go ahead and put this xylophone here. Someone in the room would be so moved as to pick up the xylophone. We can get started. Oh no. All right, Larry, thanks for playing along. All right. All right. So today we're going to be talking about adding an 8th core principle to Unitarian Universalism. There are currently 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. So in that theme of 8, Larry and Jesse, shall we try and play an 8-note scale on our xylophone by rubbing your xylophone stick from the big one to the small one? There we go. One more time. Okay, thank you. All right. For now, that'll work. But hang out next to the xylophone because we'll have other stuff. All right, thank you. All right. So there are 8 notes in a major scale in Western musical traditions, right? And that gives us a lot of other ideas. That 8 shows up in lots of places. Are there animals that have 8 things? Octopus. There you go. Okay. Some other kinds of critters. Spiders, 8-legged. Yeah, arachnids. Yeah, okay. So let's walk through the Unitarian Universalist principles one at a time. The first Unitarian principle, I'll do this there's a children's version and an adult's version, and we're going to stick with the kids' version because I find it more accessible and less full of theological language. So the first principle, and let's give ourselves a low C here, Larry. Great. All right. Everyone is important. You don't have to earn importance. We'll do the poster in a second, Sandy, but yes. Everyone starts out important and ends important. And it's not something that you earn, and it's not something that's given or taken away. All right. D. All right. Everyone should be treated fairly and kindly. And moving back to number 1, your right to be treated fairly or kindly is inherent. You don't lose the right to be treated fairly or kindly, and you don't gain it. It just is a consequence of the first principle. All right, third principle. E. There we go, thank you. We should accept one another and keep learning. So intrinsic to Unitarian Universalism is this idea that truth is not done, that there is more to learn tomorrow, and that we do it together. All right. F, I believe. Everyone must be free to search for truth and justice in life. So not only is truth not finished, and not only is truth not closed, but that your inherent dignity gives you the right to continue to search for that truth in your own way. And we have found that that is often easier in community. All right. Shall we go to G? 5, the fifth Unitarian principle. Everyone should have a vote about the things that concern them. So in larger terms, I think about the democratic process, right? And then Unitarian Universalists tend to be very uncomfortable when mechanisms degrade the right to vote for yourself, to speak for yourself. Electoral college, I'm looking at you. Just saying. All right. Next, A. Up there? Good deal. All right. We must work for a peaceful, fair, and a free world. And that's a tricky one when you have to do it in light of the fifth principle. Because the rights of a minority community need to be respected. Right? So how do you run a democratic institution while respecting the rights of the minority? Because, first principle, everyone's important. All right, seventh principle, B. Yay, okay. We must care for our planet Earth, the home that we share with all living things. And for me, the part of that that is most important is the share part, right? It's not mine, it's not yours. We're sharing it with the rest of the ecosystem. Right? We're lucky to have 5 acres of forest behind us that we use for meditation and for research and for quiet time. And that to us and in our congregation here is a part of how we live out that seventh principle. Right? Okay, that's 7. But I said we were talking about an 8th principle, right? So extending this theme of widening the circle, right? There's a movement in our tradition right now to add an eighth principle. All right, let's give ourselves a high C. Yeah, there you go. In the simplest language, the eighth principle says that Unitarian Universalists pledge to build the beloved community, free of racism and oppression. In adult language, it says, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Whew, that's a mouthful. But the core pieces of that principle for me are the idea that oppression is layered and that people experience oppression in different ways at different times of their lives. And that unless we are actively working to eliminate it, we are complicit in its continuing. Whew. So, that's the spiel. Now we'll segue over to the more visual art stuff. I want to start off with a little video clip from a almost Unitarian Universalist minister named Megan McGuire. It introduces the eighth principle and the movement that's behind it.
What is the eighth principle? Well, you know our 7 principles, right? They're things that matter to us. Things that guide how we are as a community, how we treat each other, and what we want to bring more of into the world. Just like each of us is always learning and growing, we know our principles have to grow sometimes too. This is the story of the eighth principle. A few years ago, some UU leaders spoke up. They told us these principles we love, they left something out. Like many who'd come before them, they spoke about how people still aren't being treated fairly because of the color of their skin, or where they come from, or other things that make them who they are. And that happens not only in the world at large, but even in our congregations, even in this one. So we need to do more to make sure that all people can feel welcome and loved here. We need to say more about our commitments to fight against racism, because racism hurts everybody. In fact, it hurts all 7 of our principles. And so, the eighth principle was born. The eighth principle is a commitment to fight against racism and oppression, and to build a beloved community of love and trust and belonging here in our church and in the world around us. We're going to be talking about the eighth principle a lot this spring, learning about it and what it means for this community. What does the eighth principle mean to you?
Okay, now let's continue. We have 2 posters that we're going to construct today. One with the simple versions of the principles, and one with the more elaborate kind of social justice protest phrasing of them. We're going to need some more volunteers. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. I feel like these are kind of far away. Gotcha. We found a way to do this simultaneously on the screen and in person, so we'll figure it out. Okay. In a larger collection of people, I think we have volunteers for each one. I'm not entirely sure that's good. Preston, you have some thoughts?
Well, I think maybe just if you're interested in placing one of these on, so we have two posters. See if I can move this to, I can't get this onto the, I'm trying to get this onto the Zoom, so people can see. So we have these posters, and the people online on Zoom are going to read the adult version. And then Jesse on Zoom will put the adult version onto the poster, and we'll put it here. And our job in the sanctuary is to read the kid version. And probably just have Daniel read it so that the people on Zoom can hear.
Okay.
And then we can put the kid version on. So all we really need from the sanctuary point of view, you don't have to read anything. You just have to come up when it's time and put one of these on or one of these on. So if you're interested in doing that, you can do that. If you're not, then Reverend Denise might do it.
Okay.
So is anyone interested in a couple today? Okay. So why don't we just, we'll make up the line here. And then as the people on Zoom read the adult principle, people on Zoom, Jesse, if you're interested, you need that part to hear. They can't actually hear me out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If people like are impressed with how much fun y'all are having to change their minds and like involved. This is not a thing.
Right.
Jesse and I'm good at sticking to something, and if it's so fun, it's no big deal. This is all most things.
There you go. All right. Thank you for playing along with us this morning. All right. So I think if I'm following the logic here, we're going to start with the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And Jesse, do you have a volunteer on Zoom? Got it. All right. Sure. Right. Gotcha. Okay. Sure. Okay. There are two versions that we have today. I have these fancy schmancy protest poster versions, and I have these more accessible kid versions. And the fancy schmancy protest versions came from a website called Stitcher.net, and a Unitarian Universalist graphic designer made these. The smaller kids version came from Nico van Ostrand. It helps make these things more accessible to kids. Great. So we'll start with the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
If there's someone on Zoom.
Sure. Gotcha. Hi, do I have anyone on Zoom that would like to try reading the first principle? Everyone is important. Oh, the adult version. Gotcha. This is a technically challenging thing. All right, we'll get there. All right. All right. People on Zoom look quiet today, so we'll let them be quiet. Okay. All right. We want to respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person. There we go. We got to the first principle. Good. All right, let's do this again. Second principle. Seek justice and equity and compassion in human relations. Thanks, Jesse. Third principle. Cultivate an acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Fourth principle. Pursue a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The fifth principle. Advance the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Gotcha. Speaking and sticking posters up run at 2 different speeds. Got it. All right. We are at the 6th principle. Forge the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. The 7th principle, respect the goal, excuse me, there we go. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are but a part. And finally, our proposed 8th principle, build beloved community by actions that accountably dismantle racism and other forms of oppression in ourselves and in our institutions. So as our congregation works together over the coming spring season, we will be returning to this question of the 8th principle and of the dismantling of oppression internally and externally. I wonder if those posters will become available in the near future. I heard a rumor that you can get printouts and that we're planning on ordering some.
Yeah, we've ordered that nice trench,
Alright.
nice posters that we can have up soon. We have little handouts.
Excellent. All right,
So.
good. Well, this is a beginning, but not an end, and we look forward to continuing this conversation in lots of different ways over the coming weeks and months. So let's round things out with our friend Leah Morris and her musical guests.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society, and it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise men said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Each week during our worship, we take a little time together to share some of our joys and some of our sorrows. Because joys seem bigger when you can share them. And sadnesses seem smaller when you can divide the load. So I'm going to invite our wonderful Reverend Denise to the podium, and she'll help us through that time.
For those of you joining us on YouTube, we're so glad you've come to worship with us. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next week.